In the heart of Lagos, New Dawn Ministry stood as a towering testament to faith, with walls adorned by breathtaking murals of angels that seemed to watch over the congregation. Pastor Adisa's sermons were magnetic, drawing thousands who craved his promises of prosperity and healing. The church's rapid rise was the talk of the city, but Kemi, an investigative journalist, found the perfect angle for her next story. How had a church, started just 5 years ago, grown so powerful? With her notepad in hand and a questioning mind, Kemi decided to attend one of the church's services, hoping to uncover the secret behind its success. As Kemi sat among the worshippers, she couldn't help but notice the intricate plaster murals. The angels seemed too lifelike, their eyes almost glowing in the dim light. When Pastor Adisa appeared, the room buzzed with an energy that made the hair on her arms stand on end. This is no ordinary man, she thought, as the congregation erupted into chants. Her instincts whispered that something was off, but she needed more than feelings. She needed proof. Kemi's research led her to the church's early days. Pastor Adisa often spoke of a divine vision that guided him during its construction. Rumors swirled about a plaster guide, a mysterious figure who appeared to assist the workers in creating the murals. Intrigued, Kemi visited the foreman of the original construction crew, a man named Baba Fola. Over a cup of bitter tea in his modest home, Baba Fola revealed a chilling detail. The guide always appeared at dusk, dressed in white but with shadows that moved unnaturally. He wasn't human, Baba Fola whispered. His voice, it wasn't right. The guide had provided instructions that no one dared to question, and by morning, the murals were finished. Almost as if by magic, Kemi left Baba Fola's house with her heart pounding. The pieces of this puzzle didn't just fit. They whispered of something dark beneath the church's pristine facade. Back at New Dawn Ministries, Kemi observed the congregation more closely. They chanted fervently, their eyes glassy with devotion. She interviewed a few members after the service, noting a peculiar pattern. Many claimed their lives had dramatically improved after joining the church. However, they also spoke of vivid, almost nightmarish dreams featuring the angels from the murals. One young woman, Titi, described a dream where an angel offered her wealth in exchange for her unwavering loyalty to the church. It felt so real, Titi said, her voice trembling. And the next day, I got a promotion at work. Kemi's stomach churned as she realized that these dreams weren't mere coincidences. The congregation's devotion seemed to be fueling something far darker than anyone could imagine. Determined to dig deeper, Kemi turned to her grandmother, an expert in Yoruba folklore. Over an evening meal, she recounted the strange events surrounding New Dawn Ministries. Her grandmother's face darkened. You are describing Egbeer, she said, referencing a demon angel trapped between realms in ancient Yoruba mythology. Her grandmother explained that such beings could only be bound by a blood pact, an agreement made by mortals willing to pay the price. These demon angels were known to grant power and wealth in exchange for souls, feeding off collective devotion. If this church is involved, her grandmother warned, you are meddling with forces beyond human understanding. But Kemi was undeterred. She couldn't turn back now. Not when the city's safety could be at stake. During a late-night surveillance of the church, Kemi noticed Pastor Adisa sneaking into the building. She followed him from a distance, her heart pounding as she crept through the shadows. He descended into a hidden chamber beneath the sanctuary, where the walls pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Kemi hid behind a column, watching as Pastor Adisa knelt before an altar adorned with symbols she didn't recognize. The air grew thick, and a chilling presence filled the room. Kemi's breath hitched as she heard him mutter in a language that sounded ancient, summoning something from beyond. She snapped a few photos, but the eerie glow distorted the images. Whatever was happening here was far worse than she had imagined. The next day, Kemi combed through books on Yoruba legends, looking for more about the Egbear. She discovered a chilling prophecy. Demon angels could only be unleashed when the balance between devotion and despair was broken. Their power was drawn from human emotions, amplified by rituals. Kemi's discovery was interrupted by a knock at her door. It was Titi, visibly shaken. "I don't know why, but I feel like I'm losing myself," she admitted. She recounted a recent dream where one of the angels demanded she bring more people to the church. "They're in my head, Kemi," she sobbed. Kemi realized that the congregation was more than devoted. They were pawns in a much larger, sinister game. Kemi decided to confront Pastor Adisa after a service. As the congregation dispersed, she approached him under the guise of seeking an interview. The pastor smiled warmly but faltered for a moment when she mentioned the plaster guide. "Those are just stories," he said, but his uneasy demeanor betrayed him. Kemi pressed further, asking about the hidden chamber. His smile vanished. "Curiosity is dangerous, Miss Kemi," he said, his voice suddenly cold. "You should focus on matters of faith." Before she could reply, his assistant ushered her out. The exchange left her more determined than ever, but Kemi now knew she was being watched. That night, Kemi received a frantic call from Titi, who begged her to come over. When Kemi arrived, she found Titi trembling, clutching her chest. "They're inside my dreams again," she whispered. Titi described vivid visions of angels demanding her submission. She revealed a strange mark on her wrist, a faint but intricate symbol that glowed under certain light. Kemi photographed the mark and promised to help. As she left, Kemi's mind raced. The church wasn't just controlling its followers' minds. It was marking them, binding them to something sinister. Kemi awoke to a pounding headache. Her dreams had been filled with eerie visions of the plaster angels coming to life, their eyes piercing her soul. She knew these weren't ordinary nightmares. The church's influence was creeping into her subconscious. Desperate for answers, she returned to Baba Fola, who admitted that he, too, had been plagued by dreams after working on the church. "They don't just take devotion," he said. "They take a piece of your soul." His words confirmed Kemi's worst fears. She wasn't just investigating the church. She was becoming a part of its dark web. Kemi's grandmother revealed a potential solution. An ancient Yoruba ritual that could sever the demon angel's connection to the mortal world. However, it required a relic known as the Staff of Oren Miller, believed to be hidden in an abandoned shrine outside the city. Determined, Kemi enlisted the help of her childhood friend, Deo, an archaeologist. Together, they set out to find the staff, knowing that time was running out. The shrine was overgrown and desolate, its walls covered in symbols similar to those Kemi had seen in the hidden chamber. As they searched, the air grew heavy, and strange whispers echoed around them. Finally, they found the staff buried beneath a stone altar. It was intricately carved, pulsing with an energy that sent shivers down Kemi's spine. But as they exited the shrine, they realized they weren't alone. Shadowy figures loomed in the distance. their glowing eyes revealing them as more than human. Deo and Kemi fled through the dense forest as the shadowy figures pursued them. The staff seemed to glow brighter with each step, as if guiding them. When they finally reached their car, the figures stopped at the forest's edge, their forms dissolving into mist. Kemi knew this was no coincidence. The church was aware of their every move, and the stakes had just risen. Back in the city, Titi's condition worsened. The mark on her wrist now glowed constantly, and she began speaking in a voice that wasn't her own. "The covenant must not be broken," she intoned, her eyes void of recognition. Kemi and Deo realized that Titi had become a vessel for the demon angels. If they couldn't sever her connection soon, she would be lost forever. Kemi's grandmother explained how to use the staff of Oren Miller. The ritual would require 3 components: the staff, an incantation from an ancient text, and the cooperation of someone bound to the covenant. Kemi knew Titi would have to be that person, but convincing her in her state would be nearly impossible. Kemi disguised herself and attended a secret meeting at New Dawn Ministries. She overheard Pastor Adisa speaking to his inner circle about the unveiling, a ceremony that would fully unleash the demon angels on Lagos. It was set to happen during the church's anniversary service in 2 weeks. Kemi's heart sank. She had little time to prepare the ritual and stop the unveiling. Deo tracked down the ancient text needed for the ritual in a private collection owned by a reclusive scholar. Convincing the scholar to part with it was no easy task, but Deo's persistence paid off. The text was fragile but legible, and Kemi's grandmother began deciphering the incantation immediately. Every word felt like a battle against time. Titi, now fully under the influence of the demon angels, arrived at Kemi's apartment. Her voice shifted between her own and the ominous tone of the angels. "You cannot stop us," she warned. Before collapsing into unconsciousness, Kemi saw a brief flicker of Titi's true self in her eyes and knew there was still hope. She vowed to save her friend, no matter the cost. That night, Kemi received a chilling vision. The plaster guide appeared to her, warning her to abandon her mission. "You do not understand what you're meddling with," it hissed. The vision ended with the sound of wings flapping, and Kemi woke up drenched in sweat. Kemi and Deo reached out to others affected by the church's influence, forming a small group of allies. Baba Fola, reluctantly, agreed to join them, along with a former church member who had escaped before being fully marked. With only days left before the church's anniversary, the group prepared for the ritual. Kemi's grandmother warned that the demon angels would sense their plans and try to stop them. The city itself seemed to grow darker as the date approached. On the night of the anniversary, New Dawn Ministries was packed. Pastor Adisa led the congregation in a fervent prayer, and the plaster angels began to glow. Kemi and her group sneaked into the hidden chamber, where the ritual would be performed. As they began the incantation, the room shook violently. The demon angels manifested, their forms grotesque and terrifying. Titi, possessed but still tethered to her humanity, became the focus of the ritual. The staff of Oren Miller glowed brighter than ever, repelling the demon angels. Kemi chanted the incantation with all her strength, even as the room seemed to collapse around her. Pastor Adisa appeared, his face twisted with rage. "You dare defy the covenant!" he roared. The plaster guide appeared beside him, its true form revealed as a monstrous, winged creature. With one final push, Kemi and her allies completed the incantation. The staff of Oren Miller released a blinding light, severing the connection between the demon angels and the mortal world. The church began to crumble, its murals disintegrating into ash. The congregation fled in panic, and Pastor Adisa disappeared into the chaos. Titi awoke, free from the demon angel's influence. She hugged Kemi, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered. In the aftermath, Kemi wrote a groundbreaking article exposing the truth about New Dawn Ministries. Many congregants struggled to rebuild their lives. But the city began to heal. Though victorious, Kemi felt the weight of what she had endured. She knew the fight against darkness was never truly